Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of Fostering Freedom. I'm your host, Ohranje Gallante, and today I'm going to be talking about the Biden infrastructure bill, plan, whatever it is, and I'm going to be analyzing it from, kind of a, I guess you can say, libertarian perspective, but it's a bit more radical than that. So it's going to be in a capitalist perspective, but most of the points are going to be analyzed from what you would get from an Austrian economic guy. So yeah, that's about it. But the bill is, by the way, of $2 trillion. Now, this number they didn't come up with by any kind of examination or anything like that. Even if they did, it's simply pulled out of their ass, because what they did most likely in Biden's office was like, okay, the last stimulus was 1.9 trillion, and that didn't cause any inflation according to Jay Powell, right? So they were just this was in discussion for like 1.5 months maybe, because earlier they were talking about, before the $1.9 trillion stimulus came around, they were talking about a 4 trillion plan, and now they have watered it down to 2 trillion, right? Now the reason why they did this was primarily because of inflation expectations, is my guess. Because the 10-year treasury rates are going up, right? The bond yields are going up, and that causes problems with the stock market, right? The stock market is going to start going down. Now, thankfully, the $1.9 trillion stimulus was coming in tranches, right? So it was coming in like doses, you could say. And I remember that before the second tranche of the $1,400 stimulus checks, or whatever it is, came around, or were being rolled out on a Wednesday, for 2 days straight, the stock market was going down. 2 days, right? And as soon as the stimulus checks were being rolled in, the third day, or maybe it was for 3 days, I don't know, but for the third day, the stock market recovered a little bit. Fourth day, it recovered even more. And the fifth day, it was back to normal, almost recovered all the losses that it had. So right now, what we're seeing is that the stock market needs more and more doses, it seems, in order to sustain itself, right? In order to keep this cycle going, because the 10-year treasury rate, if it goes up, then that's a problem. So what the Fed does is basically, the Fed and Treasury, basically, they just start, Treasury starts issuing all these, bonds and whatever, and the Fed starts buying them up from banks to keep the interest rates down, and that's what they essentially did in all of this. So, I think they realized that, okay, the inflation, according to Jay Powell, right? Of course, real inflation is going to be much different and, much more uneven, and also, much more higher, and it concentrated in specific things. So right now, where do you see most of the inflation? Right? It's not in any kind of commodity or any kind of product or anything like that. It's in the stock market. The stock market is where you're seeing all the inflation ending up bad, right? A lot of people are putting their money into anything and everything. And that is what happens in a bubble, because we have the longest bull market in the history of stock markets, I think, right? I think that's what it is, ever since the Fed, at least. And throughout this bull market, it's a crazy speculative mania, because anyone can just put money into anything and, watch that money grow. And they think that because of that, they are some kind of a genius now, just because they, watch this, money grow that they put in. So, they could have put in $600 or something like that, or, maybe now with the stock splitting or whatever is allowed on Robinhood, even if they have $1,400 to spare, because real incomes actually for the top bracket of the population have gone up, right? So a lot of people have seen an increase in their income during the entire COVID pandemic. And what is an increase in income actually? It means that, okay, if you still have the same salary, but you're not going to work physically, it's still an increase in your income because it means that there's less commute, so there's less time that you're spending there and less money you're spending there. A lot of unnecessary stuff that you may have bought, when going outside, you're not buying anymore, and so many other things just like that are ending up saving a lot of money for a lot of people. Right, and of course, you're seeing a lot of people move from cities to small areas, and all this sort of dispersion happening because of the work from home thing. Now, of course, this work from home thing should have happened a long time ago. It shouldn't have been a COVID phenomenon, but that's a topic for another day. The point is that a lot of people are actually seeing an increase in their savings, right? And this is reflected by the Fed balance sheet as well, or not the balance sheet. Well, it is a part of the balance sheet, but if you look at, I don't even know right now what is it? They're omitting so much information or mixing it up that I don't even remember. I think it's the M1 right now, where it counts the savings deposit account, which is the real savings that Americans have. It used to be like less than $400 or something like that. Then right now it's over 1,000 maybe, something like that. But the savings ended up increasing during this time, and a lot of it was, of course, due to the stimulus coming in, and a lot of people are saving their stimulus, thinking of bad times ahead. But that's a bad decision, right? That's a really bad decision to just put it in a bank account, because in the bank account, what's happening right now is that you're not getting anything out of that, right? Where you're getting something out of is the stock market, because that's where the inflation is ending up at, right? That's where the money that is printed up by the Fed is ending up at, and most of it at least. And everybody who's investing here seems like a genius because now their money has grown. So what this spawns is, okay, it spawns things like SPACs, which basically, another crazy speculative mania thing. And of course, a lot of people are putting money in, they're getting, an increase. Maybe they put a diversified uh, portfolio of SPACs or something. I don't even know how that is going to be assembled, but yeah, if they do that, they'll see an increase in their money. And they'll be like, "Wow, I increased." They'll lose a lot, of course, but wow, I saw a 10% overall increase. This means, I'm already beating inflation monthly at least way many times over. So I'm genius, right? And everything and anything, because of this amount of money sloshing around in the financial system, is getting hit pretty much, right? Is making lots and lots of money. So that's where the inflation is. It is eventually going to come down, but for it to come down, it would require, and I mean come down in the sense of coming down to the commodities, coming down to daily use products and lots of other things. It would require a stock market crash, which is what they call deflation, right? They're misinterpreting deflation because commodity prices are going to go down in this scenario when the stock market blows up, right, so to speak. They're going to actually go up because all the money that was now ending up in the stock market is now going to end up in other assets, that anything that people can hold on to. Right, and a lot of this money is going to get into daily use items, maybe hard commodities or something like that. And we're already seeing a lot of house increases. That's due to multiple factors, but of course, a lot of asset acquisition is a part of this. And yeah, that's what we're seeing right now. So the 2 trillion number that they come up with was in line, in my opinion. I think what the Biden office did was pretty much look at the 1.9 trillion, look at what Jay Powell is saying, and be like, okay, so what we can do right now is 2 trillion because that isn't affecting inflation, right? So that's what Jay Powell is referring to when it's, not affecting inflation. They are not measuring it correctly, right? and not even in the commodities. So they're going off of what Jay Powell is saying, and they know that if Jay Powell doesn't, so long as Jay Powell says that there's no inflation, the markets are going to be calmed down a little bit, right? So they've come up with this 2 trillion number for that reason. And of course, once you have this number, it's like almost having a piece of land in front of you, and just like, okay, I don't know what to do with it, so I'll give to a team who's who's basically gonna parcel it off and tell me where to build what. So Biden, of course, nobody believes that he can even count anymore. So he's got his team who has basically parceled this bill, and the way they have done this is pretty much from Twitter. Believe it or not, this is what I think is happening. They've looked at Twitter and what the liberal sentiment is right now for a lot of things, and they've weighed it against what Trump did, right, in order to balance it out. So what the plan aims to do, and this is where we're getting into it, is to reshape the American economy. Now, the economy is not some kind of a pottery tool or something like that, a pottery vase or something. You can't really reshape it or anything like that. It's not even a machine or anything, as many people put it. The economy is just you and I, right? That's how you have to think of it. How are you going to reshape me and you? You just can't. So the only way to reshape anything is to get rid of the options. So think of it like a traffic flow, right? Even though that's not a good analogy for the economy, but if you want people to go straight and then left, and don't take two turns, right? So you want a lot of cars in the middle lane. What you do is block all the left and right turns that are coming in, so it's going to be a straight line until they take the turn to get to where they want to from, like, in a loop, pretty much. So if you want to show there's a lot of cars and increase petrol spending somehow or whatever, just block a lot of roads so that people have to make a long roundabout turn, increase spending on petrol, and that's how you can achieve that, right? So the only way in which the government shapes or reshapes the economy is not by opening up options, it's by getting rid of them in the first place and getting rid of your choices. So you have to get crowded in to a specific streams and specific ways in which it wants you to go in. But this doesn't achieve anything, it's only a loss making venture. And we'll get to exactly what this is, but it says right here it is as much of a jobs program, one that looks to build nation's clean energy workforce, of course, expand manufacturing, and boost caregiving as a profession to serve the elderly and disabled. Now, I don't know where they came up with this caregiving stuff, but I think it's got a lot to do with America's demographics and how they're shaping up right now. I mean, I don't even know how that's gonna work out in the future. That's the riskiest part. But it is pretty much a jobs program. Now, they have pretty much, I mean, if you look at this, clean energy, manufacturing, caregiving, right? So this is pretty much targeting a lot of the Trumpies, right? And the liberals at the same time. So this is clearly aimed at getting most of the voter base. So if you get the moderates in, you're pretty much won, right? So clean energy workforce, that's going to be popular with liberals. Expand manufacturing. A lot of people are going to see the ground reality, and maybe a lot of fence-sitting, moderate, Republican leaning kind of people who have no clear idea of politics at all. They're going to be like, okay, maybe that's good. And caregiving as a profession for the elderly, I don't know what that's going to achieve, but I guess there's a lot of elderly voters or people who are going to be entering that phase in their life that just that were ardent supporters of Trump or something like that. But it's primarily a jobs program. The reason why he's focusing so much on jobs early on is because he wants to one up Trump on this. Now, even though Trump did not really increase the amount of jobs by any significant measure in the United States, right? All those millions and all those numbers come from statistical magics and government spending, right? I admit though that there is some amount of significant jobs that may have been created from lowering the corporate tax from, what is it, 35% to 21%. So that created a lot of jobs, probably. But as much jobs were created, or probably more actually, by government spending, right? Whenever government spending increases, you'll always see that the amount of jobs also increases. So if you just want to increase jobs, why not have people dig tunnels with spoons? It's going to take a lot of men to dig a tunnel with spoons. So just hand them spoons and have them dig a tunnel from one end to another, just for no reason or whatever. It can't have any made up reason that you want. Like roads to nowhere, bridges to nowhere, all these sorts of things. Why even use machinery? You maybe make it out of Roman concrete or something like that. So that's how jobs are created by government programs. It's never any real jobs or any growth in the real economy. It's just bureaucratic bloat and contractorship sort of workforces and all these sorts of things. It's only temporary. So you need more and more doses to these people in order to keep the whole thing going, right? And you need low credit policy, because what happens? Let's imagine a scenario where, and I'm sorry if I'm derailing a lot. This is going to be a long episode where I explain a lot of the basic premise, and then you can see clearly each and every part of this as to what it is aimed at. So let's imagine that you have a government and it's giving jobs to a contractor to build a bridge to nowhere over 5 years, let's say. Okay, 5 years happens, there's like 10,000, maybe 4,000, 3,200, whatever amount, right, of people that are involved in it directly. There may be a lot more that are involved in it indirectly, local suppliers and all that. What happens when the bridge is built? Do you think that all these people that are working so much on these historical, projects, they're just gonna go in and start making buildings or whatever? Is that how the economy works? No, this was an artificial demand generated by the government, right? And what is needed to be done now that this project is going to be over? They already start thinking about it. The central bankers and the Fed and all these people that are keeping an eye on these things, they already start thinking about how to essentially keep this sham going. So what they do is, okay, they see that, okay, these are all sorts of government spending and all these jobs have been created by our spending. What can we do right now to avoid a collapse that's happening? Start decreasing the interest rates, right? Start buying a lot of assets, bank assets, liabilities, anything that you can have. That is going to drop down the interest rates, and what that's going to do is create loans that are easier. Once you have an easy loan policy, what that encourages is, okay, everybody's like, okay, it's that, what is it, 1% interest rate, or maybe even less, 2%, 3%. I can pay that, easily. A lot of people start taking out loans, right? Taking on debt. What that encourages is that while this bridge is being built, the government is aware that when this is finished, or the Fed, in specific, or any of these alphabet agencies, it's all just one blob, dude. And, what they see is, okay, this is going to happen. They decrease the interest rates. That encourages more and more loans. Where do these loans go into? They go into a lot of infrastructure projects. They go into a lot of, by infrastructure, I mean like skyscrapers or buildings, renovations, a lot of houses being made, a lot of parking lots, a lot of supermarkets, all these sorts of, building lots, storage units, any of this, right? All these things are encouraged, right? A lot of things then start happening in this low credit environment. What that enables is a reabsorption of this contracted workforce, right? This company that has now employed a lot of people. And this forms a sort of feedback loop in the economy where nothing is growing per se, right? It is basically all the same, right? And increasing in the sense of, okay, now there's a lot more contractors. Now there's a lot more this, a lot more that. It's basically creating a government dependence in the economy, and over time this just keeps on getting bloated and bloated because of what the government action has been. So if you look at interest rates right now, they have been, I think, very very low, historical lows or something like that. And the reason is simple. It's pretty much, their attempt to reabsorb all these, jobs and a lot of these things. Not just jobs, but a lot of investors that have put their money in the stock market because that's somehow to them, or they've made it as if it's somehow representative of the real economy, which is it is not. And they're just continuing this whole charade, right? And it can't keep on going forever. So that's how the jobs are created. But let's get into the first point of transportation, right? So this is like about a 5 point or something bill, but 621 billion is going to go to transportation. Now they're just throwing these numbers out, dude. I would even say that they put in 621 there, or more complicated numbers, just so that everybody thinks, or the news media thinks. It's kind of like a psychological effect where people think, oh, so they have some idea as to how they have calculated these numbers. I think that's what it is, because there's no sense behind any of this. So it would spend 174 billion out of this 621, or 28% of the transportation portion. Oh, so it's like 28% of this on electric vehicles. So Tesla stock is going up now. That includes a network of 500,000 electric vehicle stations. Okay, 115 billion would pay for fixing roads, bridges chosen by those in most need of repair. Now, here, keep in mind the wording, chosen by those in most need of repair. Do you think they have a computer chip inside of every road that gives the information on who's the most needed in repair? No, there's going to be a lot of workforce involved in identifying the roads that are in most need of repair, and there's going to be 100% a lot of internal politics involved around this. 100%. So this is how the jobs are going to be created, and a lot of other things, but you'll see. So the problem of, by the way, the roads being needed in repair or in the state of disrepair, or bridges or anything, exists because the government is managing these roads and bridges, right? If it was a private company, this simply would not happen, right? Why would anybody want to travel on roads that are in the need of disrepair? And okay, if this road is not doing well, I'll just take the other guy's road. So there's competition. There's a lot of incentive to make these roads better. And of course, if you are talking about a private community, then these places would be townships. And in that township, people will be like, okay, you're not fixing the roads or whatever. Property values will go down. People from that, a lot of people, whatever money this township takes is going to go down, and the proprietor is not going to earn a lot more. So, or earn more money. So what that's going to do is create the incentive for this guy to repair these roads and all these sorts of things, which doesn't happen now. It's 20,000 miles of highways, roads. You can create those 20,000 miles out of anything. And 10 most economically significant bridges in the U.S. So I don't know how they're going to come up with that number, but I don't know. Has there been any bridge that has been economically significant that has fallen in the United States or is about to fall over? I mean, I don't doubt it because it's all government built. But 10,000 smaller bridges, okay, another problem that just has been created because of the government. 85 billion set aside for modernizing transit systems. So here we go. This is the Twitter part. So a lot of Gen Z people and a lot of progressives, they love public transport. They adore it. Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't even imagine if in 5 years in this idiocracy, you'd have porn sites that are like, okay, watch this train go from this station to that station. It's going from Tokyo to Kyoto. Look at the Shinkansen, and people jack off to it at this point because that's how the progressive behave with public transport. They go, oh my god, they go crazy about this whole thing. They love it, right? And that's why one of the reasons they also adore Europe as well, because in Europe it's their libertopia, and they see everything that they love in Europe. They see public transport, heavy public transport. They see higher taxes, which they love higher taxes, right? I mean, that's their love child. Second to public transport, they see socialized medicine, and free medicine and this and that, all this free shit, free schooling, free jail, free everything, and they love it. So that's who this is catering to. So 85 billion for modernizing transit systems. They're gonna love it, right? $80 billion for growing backlog of Amtrak repairs, as well as improvements and route expansion. Ooh, route expansion. That is gonna take a lot of money. I'm willing to bet it's not gonna end up at $80 billion at all. This budget is gonna inflate a lot. Because once you commit to a route expansion as a government, you can't just leave it there, right? At least you'd have to have an iron fist in order to leave it there. Because all these route expansions, there's a lot of unexpected costs that are going to come in. They have not calculated this. It's going to take a lot of money, a lot more money from these Amtrak contractors that they're going to take in. And of course, most of it is going to just be wasted sitting around and, overpowering equipment and all that. And a lot of equipment that is bought by this government money, by the way, ends up in the company anyway. And they just use it for, funneling more stuff to them. Airports, ports, and waterways would also receive improvements, of course. So, that isn't that much of a priority to his base. He needed to put aside 80 billion, the big number, for Amtrak, right? And 85 billion for transit systems. Because if you Google Gen Z wants Gen Z train map, right? I might put it in the description. It's a Vox article that shows what the Gen Z progressives want. Believe it or not, they exist, and from the United States, and they just want like a train network going from New York to LA, right? So that's their red green, and it's all covered in rail tracks and whatnot. It's really impossible, but they just want it. So that's who this is for. Another second point is another big number. It's $650 billion, and this is for quality of life at home. So remember that one. The first point was 621 billion for transport, and it includes a lot of things that are, I would say, really unnecessary, and a lot of it. I mean, all of it is just problems that are being created by the government. So the government, what it does is basically breaks your legs and then hands you a crutch and expects you to tank it for it. So, the largest focus of this is American homes, school building. By American homes, it means Detroit and nothing else but Detroit-like places. School buildings, what schools? Underground water infrastructure. Okay, that you deteriorated. And broadband expansion. Broadband expansion, by the way. That's one of the priorities. Yeah, get more people on the internet so they can listen to your propaganda. Not that anybody is left anyway. I mean, who's left right now that doesn't have any internet in America? Is there anybody who's still using DVDs to get their information or something like that? I mean, I don't know. Are they going to force the Amish to be on the internet? Something like that. The plan would spend 213 billion, big number, to build, preserve, and retrofit more than 2 million affordable homes and commercial buildings. So I don't know what they mean by commercial buildings. Why would they retrofit them? When what? I mean, commercial buildings, they renovate themselves, right? If it's growing, if there is any business, it would automatically be up to date. It would automatically look better. You don't need to spend government money in order to preserve or make those. So, a lot of it, I imagine, is related to these 2 million affordable homes. And, the commercial buildings in these areas in specific, right? So this is pretty much going to be Detroit, right? And Detroit like places and ghettos and all those things where 213 billion is going to end up. Now, one of the reasons why they're doing this as well. Sorry if this is going to be a long podcast, by the way. I'm going to be dissecting each and every point, so to say. The reason why they're doing this 213 billion, by the way, is so that the values of those homes rise. Because a lot of people, what they do in these areas is they take loans on their houses, right? And then they use that money to pretty much live off in somewhere else on rent or something of the other like that. So what happens when they build, preserve, and retrofit more than 2 billion homes is the house values of these places go up. And of course, who's going to inhabit these? All these loans are going to be super easy that the Fed gives them. People aren't going to just sell their houses, or they're going to, take a loan on these houses and, of course, live off of that money. So it's another plan to give money indirectly to the people that are living in these places. This includes the construction of 500,000 homes, okay, or rehabilitation. So it's like, oh yeah, this is where it gets. So a lot of probably like poor families, right, have homes that are pretty much completely destroyed in their names, and what they're gonna do is rehabilitate it, basically reconstruct it, and then the value is gonna go up again, and that's gonna allow them to sell it or allow them to take out a loan on that. An additional 111 billion would go toward clean drinking water, including replacement of all lead pipes and service lines. Why did the people of Flint not have clean drinking water? Right. It is because the government is behind providing the water supply there, right? The government has a hand in providing it. If it was a private company, and there's, of course, in this environment, in a free market environment, there would be multiple companies that are providing, water supply that is to the residents. All of a sudden, let's say that you start smelling, something weird in your water. It doesn't look very good or whatever, right? You're just gonna switch to another provider, right? You're not only going to switch to another provider if it's a violation of contract that they're giving you a dirty water supply, then you can just sue them, right? They're going to give you money they're going to compensate you. Maybe a lot of people drink this water and they suffer symptoms of they maybe some people die, so there's a lot of risk for a private company to provide water that is dirty. And of course, when you have this sort of thing, there will be other companies that are providing the water. They will be like, okay, we provide clean water. So what you get the water from us. And this is not just to Flint, Michigan. Suppose you're living in a good city, right? And over time, like your water starts smelling a little bit weird, right? It smells not just of chlorine or anything like that, but it smells like metallic, let's say. Right? It smells leady, right? Right now, you don't necessarily have any option, realistically, to switch your water supply to something that has no government, involvement, right? In a private environment, in the free market environment, you have the option. So as soon as you smell something funny in the water, you maybe go to your neighbor and be like, yo, are you smelling something weird in the water as well, or something like that? Or maybe you have a friend who's got a different water supplier, and you ask them the same question, and they maybe tell you, no, I'm not getting this. What you're gonna do is switch to another supplier, right? Who's not doing that, and maybe this supplier is the one who doesn't have lead pipes and doesn't have any of these things, that provide you bad water to begin with. What that is going to do is promote the guy that has the bad smelling water that is still using lead pipes to replace the pipes or go bankrupt, right? Over time, this guy is going to lose big time to this water supply. And that is going to create an automatic incentive for all these things to stay up to date, just like the bridges, just like the roads, just like everything else, right? Everything else. the same would happen to the water supply. Why would anybody poison their customers, and take on this liability, huge liability on their head? They wouldn't. The reason why this nonsense problem has been created in the first place that requires 111 billion is because the government is in control of this. Anyway, let's move on. The plan sets aside 100 billion, so that's a round number. They just came out of that from their ass. You just know it. For constructing or modernizing public schools. Okay, the same public schools where you can dress like a fucking clown in America and go there. I wish at least, I would say that if they at least had uniforms in school, a lot of this nonsense that we see today wouldn't happen. It becomes a popularity contest going to an American school, just how it looks like, how you can dress anyway. Once you don't have a uniform, what you do is, okay, if there's a girl wearing a top that is a little bit too short, right now, if you go 30 years back, you can say, okay, you can't wear that, and that would be fine, right? You'd mind it, that would be fine. Now you do that, over time it becomes a national issue. It starts becoming a national issue. Why can't you wear this? Why can't you wear that? Soon enough, you have a scene like Idiocracy where everybody's just wearing a fucking bikini to the school or something. Maybe not that extreme, but yeah, something glammy like that. The uniform avoids this entirely because you don't have the option to do any of that. You don't have the option to, wear a mini skirt to the school or wear, half cut top or, wear like a leather jacket or some stupid thing to school. You have a uniform. It has certain specifications. This much to the knee length. I remember I went to a boys' school where we had uniforms. We were required to have knee length black socks, black boots, khaki pants, khaki shirt, a tie, golden and dark blue striped tie. That's what you would wear. If your tie was double knotted or any of that fancy stuff, you'd get it reprimanded. Only on special occasions would you be allowed that. All the buttons have to be, closed. Your shirt must be tucked in. Your house belt. You had houses in schools. I don't know if you have that in America. You had houses in school. You wear that belt. It should be showing at all times. It shouldn't be twisted or crimpled up or anything of that nature. That was the standard that you had. You couldn't really do a lot in this case. And our sister school, which was a girls-only school, you had the specification of how big or how how much your skirt should be. So it should be like about a palm's length above your knee or something like that. And, that's what the teacher said. And I don't think they had a particular measurement because everybody's height is different. So, once anybody wore a little bit shorter or pulled it up, the teacher would demand them. So you can't do this in America because of all this nonsense, non-uniform sort of thing that has gone there. And of course, children don't like listening to this because they want to wear anything and everything that they want. In fact, when I was in school, a lot of people were like, no, I want to wear whatever they want. Look at the Hollywood movies. They wear whatever they want. And of course, I didn't like that, but everybody else was in favor of that. A lot of boys were even in favor of, mixing the girls' school in with the boys' school, making it a co-ed or something like that. And I know that's going to be a disaster. Another 100 billion would be used to build high-speed broadband networks throughout the country. Why do you need this? Now, especially, now that you have things like the space, what is it? Starlink, right? So you get a $4.99 satellite dish or some small dish that you can put on top of your house, right? On top of your roof or some open space. If you just look up Starlink test real life or Starlink review real life on YouTube, it's gonna come up, right? And it provides 100 megabits of connection, or even more sometimes, from the sky, from the space, due to the satellites that Starlink has for $99 a month. And I imagine the price is gonna go down over time if there's more competitors or whatever over time. And even if not, that price isn't too much to get internet if you really want it around, wherever you are. And of course, when the government invests money, it is only going to increase the price. It's not going to decrease the price. So your broadband internet, high-speed broadband internet in particular, is going to go up. And the goal is apparently to make it universal for Americans and drive down the cost. So this is a big lie. It's not going to drive down the cost. If I go to the store and start buying, if I go to the stock market and start buying a lot of stock, 100 billion worth, whatever stock I'm buying, is going to increase in price. That's just how it goes. Same is for the internet. It's a lot of money. 40 billion to improve public housing. Again, I don't even know what this means specifically. So improvement, maybe just painting it again or whatever. Or maybe this is the projects, the big buildings, the big apartment buildings, and those were the independent houses. That may actually be true, because this is 213 for the independent houses and 40 billion for a big apartment block. So I don't know how they're going to go there even without getting shot. 18 billion for veterans affairs, so they're getting the military in their pocket like they already have. I mean, it never was partisan to begin with. There's a lot of meathead, knucklehead type of and hardy people in the right wing, so they think that the entire military is support of them. That really is not the case. If you look at how the military operates, it's a completely socialist program. If you had the things that the military has throughout your country, you would call it socialism. If it's the military that has it, you wouldn't, right? It's a completely socialist program, and a lot of left wing are catching up on it. I just know one person, and this guy is anonymous, obviously, in some kind of a Discord or whatever. But he or she said that they just go there, work in a canteen and whatever, and of course they basically said that going to the military for benefits is good. So that's the logic that is perpetrating in the left wing circles that are growing up, and of course can't blame them. Life has already become hard because of all the government spending and all that. So it's a good way to get an education for cheap and whatever. So the military is going to get there. 12 billion for community college infrastructure. Okay, nonsense. 16 billion to plug oil gas wells and reclaim abandoned mines. So I don't know what the situation with oil and gas wells is. Are they just pouring over in the United States? I don't know. But reclaiming abandoned mines, why would you want to do that? There's a reason that they're abandoned. Anyway, let's get on to the third point here, which is caregivers for elderly and people with disabilities. So they're going to pump, literally it says Biden wants to pump 400 billion to improve access to quality, affordable home or community-based care for the elderly and people with disabilities. Pump is the term, right? This whole thing is a pump. It would also boost pay for care workers who are disproportionately women of color and typically earn about $12 an hour. So is that not already more than minimum wage and more than what a burger flipper or someone like that earns in the United States? I don't know. I mean, it does seem like it. So why do they want to boost it even more? I don't know. I mean, I think this entire 400 billion is basically going to go into expanding this Medicaid program, and what does it say? Eliminate a backlog that prevents thousands from getting care. So the reason this backlog exists is because the government is involved in medicine to begin with. For too long, the caregiver have been unseen, underpaid, and undervalued. Okay, maybe for you, maybe he's looking out for himself. Research, development, and manufacturing. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is really like nationalizing industry, right? Putting the country in fifth gear. So, anytime you have the government tinkering with investment and making malinvestments in the economy, any investment by the government is malinvestment. Because whatever people don't want right now, if the government puts in money to it, a lot of the money is going to pour in that direction that will not go into the other direction. So overall, the economy is halted. That is what happens. Despite the GDP numbers, whatever, the GDP is a meme. We just call it line go up because the GDP is composed of government spending, net export, investments, and something else, right? Something else, growth or something like that, right? So two things, investments and government spending, control the entire GDP. You can have a lot of government spending, and that's going to make it seem like your GDP is increasing all the time. That's really not the case. One other example of, well, let's say that the government spends some money or encourages money by low credit policy into the technology sector, into the Silicon Valley, or any of these places. What are the consequences of that? The consequences are that other technologies or other things that are demanded by the market usually go down, right, or stagnate completely. So if you look at nuclear energy or energy generation in general, energy generation completely stagnated because of a lot of other technological improvement. It's not just that society is distracted. Society actually is not distracted at any given moment by all of this because there's an investment cost, right? So initially, anything is going to be costly that people are interested in or whatever, right? Just like any kind of entrepreneurial, free market process. And due to this distraction of computer technology, smartphones, and a lot of other nonsense, what has lagged behind in all of this has been energy generation, right? Look at the type of nuclear power plants, they haven't changed much. Look at the cover of nuclear power plants across the world. That hasn't significantly changed or increased at a significant enough pace. It could have been a lot more, right? And the focus has been taken away from uranium. There's a lot of thorium talks right now that haven't been developed. The reason is because it is in government control. There's a lot of investment that doesn't go into that. I mean, China is the only one right now that is looking into the thorium plants because they have a plant of theirs that has got like 700 workers or something working in it. And I don't know how that successful that is going to be, but they're the only ones working on it. So nuclear is one example, but even before that, if you look at energy generation itself before nuclear, there was a lot of interest in electricity and just electricity generation via alternative means, right? Before nuclear was around, and all that was distracted away from because of the push for nuclear by the government, right? So all of those things have lagged behind. Maybe if this didn't come around, I mean, of course, we don't have a time machine to see how this would have been if you tinkered this or that. But perhaps if nuclear didn't come about like that, or come about as early or lopsidedly as it did, we perhaps see solar cells improving before we get to the nuclear point, or any of these sorts of things, hydro generation or geothermal, or all these sorts of ways of energy generation, because that's where I don't know too much of the history of this, but that's where it seemed like it was heading to because of all this, and gasoline based generation and a lot of other things. So we don't know. And right now the government is what they're doing is they're spending 300 billion to improve manufacturing that would be invested in it, support for domestic production of technologies and critical goods. All goods are critical. I don't know what they mean by critical goods, So they are saying that that's what they're going to do, but the problem of this being already not manufactured in the United States has been caused by regulation. That's the reason why American companies moved out of the United States to begin with across the world. It's not because of anything else that happened. It's because America actually put an axe to their foot, really, when they increased the regulatory burden on all these companies. The reason China exists right now in its power as much as it does is single-handedly on America, because they have built their country pretty much, nearly entirely. Now, of course, the balance has shifted a little, a lot to more of a 50-50 scenario. But they built themselves literally on America itself, right? A lot of manufacturing from America moved to China. A lot of investment did, and a lot of not just China, but a lot of other countries worldwide, right? And United States just lost its position as a producer. The reason being is the regulatory burden that was caused in the United States over the years that has prompted them to move to all these other places and manufacture stuff there for a lot cheaper than they could be in the United States. And there's no way to get around it. No tariff, nothing like that. I would make an entire episode on tariff if I could, but gist of it is, even if you have any kind of tariffs, they're still a lot cheaper, whatever the foreign goods are, compared to what you're producing inside. So it's not going to do anything. And even if you force somehow to for things to produce inside, they're a lot less efficient, right? Because you have a lot more running costs. And who's going to pay this cost? American consumers, right? Nobody else is going to foot the bill for this. And what extra amount they spend on, let's say, cameras, if you want to build that in America, that's not being spent on any other good in the market. So America, whatever it produced efficiently otherwise, would suffer because of any kind of tariffs or increases in the money. So maybe America makes umbrellas very efficiently and China cannot do that, right? Let's imagine a scenario like that, but China can make cameras efficiently. Politicians would look at like, whoa, all of our cameras are getting Chinese. What we got to do is increase tariffs on cameras. Yeah, sure. Maybe if you match the price up, or increase the price of Chinese cameras by heavy tariffs, that's going to make the American cameras cheaper, but it's going to be still a higher price to pay than would have been for the Chinese cameras. So that additional money is now not going into buying more umbrellas, right? Or exporting those umbrellas outside, because now the capital that they have, or the amount of money that that industry is getting, is shrinking. So it makes them, the actual genuinely efficient industry, suffer, and renders it uncompetitive, right, on the world stage. And over time, the effect is a total loss for any country that experiments with certain tariffs like this. So 50 billion out of the 300 billion going towards semiconductor manufacturing and research. Now, I don't know about you, but I think semiconductor research is not something that America is behind on. So, pretty much this seems like a military decision more than anything else. But, what do I know? I don't know why they're trying to increase semiconductor manufacturing now instead of just removing, why they're trying to put money in instead of just removing regulation. But that's how democratic brains work. 180 billion on new research and development with an emphasis on clean energy, fewer emissions, and climate change research. 180 billion. This is the majority of this plan, right? Like 60% of the money that is being spent on this is going to is going to climate research and clean energy and all that. So, imagine how many studies and research this is going to be that is going to be shoveled down your throat like a USSR propaganda about climate change and how the white man causes the climate change and all that nonsense as well. This is all going to be coming out just soon. 100 billion for, or maybe white supremacy is to blame for climate change. 100 billion for work training and an increase of worker protection system. So a lot of unions, a lot of useless fucking workers. We've fallen back, Biden said, of U.S. investment in research and technology. The rest of the world is closing in, and closing in fast. We can't allow this to continue. The reason why you've fallen back is because of your policies, or the policies of your goddamn clan, dude. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So we're wrapping up in less than an hour, it seems like. That's pretty good. Biden wants to raise the corporate tax rate to 28% to pay for the plan. Okay. And he wants to increase the minimum tax on multinational corporations to 21%. So I don't know what they're going to do to increase the multinational corporation tax rate, but that's going to discourage investment in the United States. It's not going to encourage it. And when you have that discouragement, what the government is going to do is going to be like, okay, what we're going to do now is we need more investment because that's the reason why we're not making all this stuff. Our infrastructure is falling behind. That's the biggest fucking lie in the world, that the infrastructure of the United States is falling behind. A lot of countries with a lot worse infrastructure are having better growth rates than the United States. So I don't know why the United States would suffer if it's just about infrastructure. It's not just about infrastructure. It's about a lot of other things. It's about U.S. regulation mainly. But the tax rate before this was 21% that Trump did, and he cut it from 35%, which I already talked about. So 28% is going to cause job loss, but that's going to be replaced by all the easy credit policies, all the easy money supply that the Fed is going to come in and put the bill for, and all the new jobs that are being created by this goddamn government spending program, right? what is it? Tax havens is gonna end tax havens, profit shifting to tax havens, ensure large corporations pay their fair share. Okay, that's never gonna happen. They're just gonna move out. Eliminate a rule that allows U.S. companies to pay no taxes for the first 10% of returns when they locate investments in other countries. Okay, so people, instead of just being in the U.S., they're just gonna start their companies outside. Why start in the U.S. when there's so many hurdles for this? Now, this is the funniest bit, right? I mean, a child could calculate this and understand that this is never gonna work. So hear this. The White House projects the spending would be fully paid in 15 years and reduce deficits in the following years. Joker could have come with a better line. 15 years to pay $2 trillion, and then not only that, all this money that we have spent now is gonna be a free energy machine, right? It's gonna generate so much free money that we're gonna stop filling that hole of national debt that we have. We're gonna start reducing deficits because of all this money that we have spent. Now, in those 15 years, all of this stuff that is being made by carbon fiber, graphene, and whatnot, all this material, it's not going to deteriorate at all, right? There's not going to be any wear and tear on all those roads, no new maintenance that is required on all those bridges, no new bridges, not the bridges that haven't been counted going to shit more and more, so that you need to increase spending there. None of that is going to happen, right? In all this time, all the industries are going to just sort themselves out, and no industry is going to be lagging. I mean, it's absolutely imaginary that this guy thinks, or the White House thinks with a straight face. They don't think. They don't know. They know it's a sham. They just want to, keep this train going and pass the burden onto someone else, kick the can down the road, as they say. And even if we look at 15 years, okay, so it takes 15 years to eliminate $2 trillion, right? Now, if we don't count all the liabilities, unfunded liabilities that the US has about a $30 trillion national debt, right? So if it takes $2 trillion, if it takes 15 years to pay off $2 trillion, let's see, 30 divided by 2, right? 50. It takes 15 years. That's like 15 into 15, 225. It's going to take 225 years to wipe out $30 trillion of debt. 225. How many years has it been since America formed to begin with? Let's see, 1776 or 2021, 1776, 245. So it's going to take nearly the same amount of years to pay off this debt according to this plan, as long as America has lived to begin with. What is this nonsense, dude? I mean, anybody can look at this and just call this out. Just on that alone, this last line in this is absolutely, I don't even know what to say. Who believes that 225 years, all those years are going to be just reducing deficits as some long-winded future plan? I mean, who's going to say that the country stays together? And in all of those 225 years, you imagine that all these roads are not going to be in a state of disrepair. Somehow they're all just going to work completely fine. All these bridges are just going to work completely fine. No additional money has to be allocated or anything like that. It's just going to become a self-repairing machine because of this bill. It's not going to happen, dude. This guy is going to die before his term is even over, I would say. Maybe. That's what it looks like. And nobody's stupid enough to believe this, except for liberals, except for Democrats, and except for socialists and all these, left-wing idiots. So that's all I've got for this. We clocked in an hour, but if you made it to this point, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening. And make sure to leave a like wherever you're listening this, because that boosts my signal a lot. My private city episode was boosted a lot because of the likes and the comments that you guys left behind. So yeah, I'm looking to see where this goes, and thank you for listening. See you guys next time.